As a young professional, what's your worst, funniest, strangest client story? I worked in DSL tech support for a year. One time I took a call from a nice guy in California who worked during the day and was having some trouble using his Wi Fi. I politely began troubleshooting, didn't ask any idiotic questions, etc. Finally, he mentioned he was having issues using this while he was at work. I figured he had a home office or something, so I asked him about how far his work was from his gateway. He replied, about 30 miles. Right. Another time, I was trying to help a woman get her DSL set up. She had tried a few phone jacks and her DSL light was always blinking red. It looks like there's no DSL signal. I ran some line tests, bounced the port, and it looked like she wasn't getting any signal. Since we were on the landline, the same line the DSL uses, it was pretty clear she had a port miswiring. I started to dispatch a BST technician for her, informed her that it would take until tomorrow evening until I could guarantee the BST technician would be done, and she started flipping out. We arrived at Jesus watches everything, and he gonna come down and click. She called back again in an hour and got me again. Things began in a civil manner but quickly degraded. I got told if I were sitting at your computer, I'd have already fixed this. I got a call from an irate customer, 6 calls just that day. Most, if not all, are marked as irate. Oh boy. So I try to do my intro and get cut off by a screaming dude. Okay. Time for the old rope-a-dope. Just tire him out. It takes about 15 minutes. In the meantime, I look up his account, determine it's in service, check his port, and he's got sync. Find the modem serial number and remote in. Dude is screaming about Wi-Fi. I headed over to his modem's wireless settings and took a look around. He has already changed a bunch of settings, stupidly. Broadcast power is down, the wireless channel is on 6, and SSID broadcast is disabled. What? So my CU is currently screaming at me because he can't see his wireless network and he's the one who turned off SSID broadcast? I checked the previous case notes, dude is still screaming, and lo and behold, this is the same issue they've been having. No one figured it out, and I had that feeling the moment I heard this guy screaming about his Verizon 3G hotspot working, but not this. So he's still screaming. I cranked the power up, channel to 10, SSID broadcast on, and I try to cut him off. Sir, could you check now? I enabled SSID broadcast. Well, it appears to be working. It seems SSID broadcast was disabled. Smith also isn't a standard wireless name. I noticed that also when I checked. Oh yeah, we changed the name so it was easier to remember. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. Seems like somehow that SSID broadcast option got flipped over. No big deal though, I got that sorted out. Oh yeah, that's weird. Maybe one of the last texts did it. I could keep going, like the guy who asked me if I get up to pee at night, and when I replied no, he told me to enjoy it because one day I would. Or the lady who told me that she wished she could be a call girl because it was so glorious and romantic and they got to have relations all the time. Or the lady who told me I needed to get out and sleep around a lot while I was young. Sound advice there, actually. Story 2. As a real estate agent, I have 3 stories that left me with a terrible taste in my mouth. I had 2 clients, both in their early 20s, a few years younger than me, who were looking for an apartment in the East Village. They were dressed hip in their ripped clothes, very hipster. We got in the elevator to head downstairs and start looking at apartments when one of them looked at my brand new pair of Converse All-Stars. Oh, you don't really wear Converse. What? They're not all dirty and ratty. You don't really wear Converse. You're just a poser. They're brand new. The soles fell out of my last pair. You should buy them already worn in. Later, I tried to have a conversation with them since we were going to spend the next 8 hours together. I simply asked, so, what do you do? Why? I'm just making conversation. We've got to spend the day together. It's not really any of your business, but I'm a filmmaker. Oh, so am I. What kind of films do you make? I make jewelry. The rest of the day was spent with them trying to show me around the East Village, despite the fact that I clearly knew it better than them. Finally, I simply walked in front of them as fast as I could, making them run to catch up and complain that it was too hot and we were going too fast, even though they were practically running to get ahead of me before. They didn't rent, but it was obvious in the first 10 minutes they weren't going to. They had a $2,000 budget with a $5,000 taste. In the second story, I was showing a professional woman, an international banker, living in an apartment on the Upper West Side. She started talking about all the places in the world she's been to for work and how she makes $300,000 a year and travels for free. She asked what my favorite country was, and I had to admit that I'd never been out of the country. Oh, you must be one of those Republicans who hates everything but America. No, I just grew up in a lower-class home where there wasn't money for travel. Well, if you don't want to travel, what are you even doing in NYC? Why don't you go back to the South where you belong? I came here to go to graduate school at Columbia, and instantly she was my best friend. It was so openly insulting and bigoted about how I grew up and my worth as a person. The third story, I'll make this one short. A mother and daughter from Florida looking for apartments. I show them a building on Central Park West across the street from the Dakota. We come out and the mother tells me, I don't mean to brag, but these buildings look too poor for my daughter to live in. Our house in Florida only costs $500,000 and looks a lot better than these. I point to the Dakota and point out that it is one of the most historic and expensive apartment buildings in the city. I've never heard of it, so it can't be that famous. And it still looks old and poor. I don't feel comfortable with my daughter living across the street from something like that. I couldn't do anything but shake my head at that, particularly with the throngs of tourists taking pictures of the building since, John Lennon. So to the first part of this story, because hold on, wait a minute. You can buy quote-unquote brand new Converses that are actually worn in, and that's preferable? I guess I'm just way too old nowadays. Story 3. This is a story from my time as an EOD technician, bomb squad. We got a call once about a piece of ordnance someone had in their house. Seeing as the location was quite a distance away, we tried to get as much information over the phone as possible to determine what it was before we left. This information helps us decide what tools and equipment are needed and how much time to take to dispose of said ordnance. I asked all the general questions and I was told it looked like a bomb. So I asked for the length and diameter and I was told it was about 18 inches long and a few inches in diameter. A common item we get called for are practice bombs. They are smaller, so this is what I start to think she has. I ask if it is a sort of teardrop shape towards the front, and they say yes. Then I ask if it has any blue paint on it, to which they reply yes again. Now I'm pretty sure we have a regular practice bomb, and we finish up our questions, head to the bunker to get our explosives, and get on our way. Now keep in mind that I am the low guy in a two-man team, and I am pretty much fresh out of school. When we arrive on scene, being the driver and the taller of the two of us, the homeowners decide to come running up to me. This is common because people never know what to expect when the military comes to their house. I can understand their concerns, but what starts coming out of their mouth is what blows me away. After a brief round of greetings and introductions, the conversation goes something like this. Lady, oh, it's probably nothing to worry about, it's all old and rusted. Me. Well, ma'am, oftentimes age makes items more hazardous. The metal slowly deteriorates and any safety measures that were in place could be dramatically less effective or gone altogether. Husband, I assume he's trying to cover for his wife and show that there is nothing to worry about. Well, it has a propeller on the front and I spun that around and nothing happened. At this point, I'm not sure how long I stared in disbelief, but I regained and tried to remain professional. Me. Sir, I need to ask that you never do anything like that again. You could have armed or functioned the device, wounding yourself and others. Husband, he couldn't drop it, just had to have some redemption. Oh, well, it also has some fins on the back and I unscrewed them halfway. Here's his statement of redemption, but I figured that wasn't smart, so I screwed them back on. After that line, I just walked away and went inside to see what we had. Up to this point, I was still thinking we had a practice bomb, but when I walked into the kitchen to see a complete World War II beehive bomb, I just couldn't help but think how lucky people can be at times. FYI, a beehive bomb is a 20-pound fragmentation bomb with explosive filler. Incredibly dangerous. Story 4. My boss gave a client a company car to drive, and 2 days later, he asked me to call her and remind her to return it by the weekend. So I called her up, reminded her, and she said she'd have it back on Saturday. Saturday rolls around and she doesn't return it. Sunday, no show. I called and left her a message that she did not return. Long story short, I called and left 8 or 9 messages over the next 3 freaking weeks asking her to return our car. Finally, she calls me back. Hello, this is Mrs. Doe. You need to come here right now and pick up your car. I have workmen coming and the car is in their way. Clearly, we have inconvenienced her by allowing her to park our car in an inconvenient spot and she is upset. I replied, annoyed but professional. Mrs. Doe, I'm afraid I can't make it there now. Can you please bring the car here since you live 2 miles away? She is now even more upset. No, I have things to do. You need to pick up your car now. I told her I won't be able to pick it up until 11:30. If that's a problem, then you can bring the car here. She screams, I have workmen coming. I'm paying them hourly and the car is in their way. So it turns out the reason she kept our car so long was she had decided that instead of returning it to us, she would go on vacation instead. While on vacation, she drained the battery to the point where even a battery pack couldn't jumpstart the car. I called the tow truck and then she called again after running errands and returning home. This car is still in my driveway. Yes, ma'am, I replied. We weren't able to jumpstart it. A tow truck is on the way. Unacceptable. Get this car now. Seriously, she was a very wealthy woman who was very much unaccustomed to not getting away. The fact that she had demanded this car be gone and it wasn't magically made so not only upset her but offended her. Ma'am, I called our tow insurance and they called 3 local tow companies. The earliest available tow truck will be there by 5. Her final demand was for me to call every local tow truck company in the area while she listened to make sure I did and see if any could be there faster. That was the point where I told her if the job I'm doing isn't adequate, she needs to contact my boss, and I hung up. Sometimes clients like these can be, well, let's just say terribly unique. Let's take a quick breather from all the madness by hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel so you don't miss more relatable content just like this, as tiring as it may be, because these people can be so tiring. All right, done? Let's go ahead and get back to the stories. Story 5. I was speaking with a customer who had a rather significant cable bill. Going over his account, I found that the bill was largely the result of adult on-demand orders. Naturally, because almost no one will admit to watching those, the customer claims he never purchased any of the on-demand orders. So I pulled a full report on the on-demand orders from his cable box. The full report tells us what was ordered, when it was ordered, how long it was watched, how many fast-forwards, rewinds, pauses, plays, and stops were hit, and when the order was removed from the cable box. I imagine this info was used for lots of metrics, but when dealing with customers, it gives us an easy way to confirm or deny if a customer fat-fingered the order and accidentally ordered something. The general rule was that if something was watched for less than 5 minutes without a bunch of fast-forwards or rewinds, they were probably telling the truth. Anyway, full details show that the videos were watched for an average of 20 minutes with plenty of fast-forwards and rewinds. Still in denial, the customer then asks when the movies were ordered. I gave him the approximately 1.5-month span that the movies were ordered. He then claims that it's impossible as he was out of town during that time and the only other resident of the household was with him. Since I'm such a nice fella, I continued to give him the benefit of the doubt and asked him to double-check the serial number on his cable box. It would have required about 4 layers of screw-ups, but it is possible that the cable box at his house isn't the one on his account, and someone else managed to get the box that's in his name at a different house. Naturally, these layers didn't happen and the serial numbers matched. At this point, I explained that the only way someone would have ordered those movies was by being in the man's house. The customer pauses for a moment, then says, "Well, when I got home, I found the back door open." I've been speechless for a few seconds. This man is suggesting that someone broke into his house repeatedly for more than a month for the express purpose of watching movies. I then give the only advice I can think of. Sir, you need to burn everything. Someone broke into your house and watched over $1,300 worth of adult videos. There is no surface in your house I would trust. Story 6. Part of me thinks I should at least land in the top 10 with this incident. Worst ever? Man who came into the salon I worked at and threatened me with a firearm in my face because of his wife's haircut. Seriously? No joke. The shortest way I can tell it is, so she comes in and wants her haircut exactly like it was in a picture of herself from her earlier life that she showed me. I execute the cut perfectly and all is joy, puppy bellies, and rainbow kisses. She left me with a huge tip. Husband shows up about an hour later, screeching truck tires in the parking lot, firearm in hand, kicks open the door and demands, "Who cut his wife's hair?" Since she was the only woman that had come into the place since she left, my traitorous boss pointed to me and ran out the back door. At first, I was scared, then I was pissed. I proceeded to get into a shouting match with a man who could have ended me over a haircut. I pretty much figured out that his wife wanted short hair. He didn't want her to have short hair. So she gets it done anyway and throws me under the bus with her husband in order to make it look like I butchered her hair and that she was devastated, all the while getting what she wanted and not getting into trouble with her husband. I make him feel sheepish with my screaming back at him. He backs down after 15 minutes and then I tell him that as soon as he leaves, I'm sending the police over to his house to make sure he doesn't hurt his wife. Lucky for me, I had several cops as personal friends because they were also my clients and I had a check from her with their addresses. Dude leaves shamed and embarrassed. I lock up the place, call my boss, and leave a very angry message on his phone and then go home to bawl my eyes out after that fact. I went back to work when I finally felt like it and was paid in full with a huge bonus for my time of absence. I shortly thereafter quit working there. The only part of all this that still burns my bum is that no one came in and helped. They saw what was happening in the window and they quickly drove away, nor did my boss call the cops to help me out while all this was going down. Story 7. I'm a funeral director. I was working with a family where the next of kin was a woman with a slight touch of dementia, just enough to make her not entirely lucid. The children completed the arrangements and the contract. Through the entirety of the arrangement conference, we're aware that she's not quite sure why she's there. It hasn't sunk in yet that her husband just passed away. Anyway, we get around to the day of the service and it's family only for the first hour. He's up at the front of the chapel, dressed to the nines, and the wife has hobbled her walker up to look at him. She's in some distress, finally connecting that this body is her husband. Haltingly, she asks me to open the foot end of the casket so she can see his feet and confirm that it's him. Of course, I oblige. Important fact, I did not embalm, dress, or cosmetize this body, so I lift open the foot end and immediately the daughter gasps. Those aren't his shoes. Why are there strangers' shoes on Dad? Cue total panic mode for the next 5 minutes, so I do my best to smooth it over, taking the shoes off and vowing to fire my embalmer later. I figure I'm done, but no, Mom wants to see his bare tootsies. Okay, so I slip the sock down on the left foot, then tug it off. She is delighted to see him and reaches out a hand to tenderly caress his toes, and I'm barely holding down the gag reflex before myself and the daughter intervene. I spent the next few minutes trying to slip the sock back on. Let's just say that when the family walked out of our front doors, I was beyond relieved. Story 8. About 3 years ago, I had a job at a small print shop as their graphic designer. Desktop publishing mostly, occasional business cards, mostly just lame forms and such. We got a job for a towing company. They were AAA, All-American Towing, or something similar. Something with a lot of A's so they'd be listed first in the phone book. They wanted us to whip up something over-the-top patriotic. American flags, bald eagles, all of it. I do a quick little mock-up and send it off to them for a sign-off on the proof. They love every single part of it except the bald eagle stock photo I used. They said the eagle looked angry and not friendly at all. My manager and I make a couple of jokes, mostly about it being a bird of prey, not a bird of play, etc. In a minute of downtime, I opened the project up and spent some time screwing around with the liquify tool. It basically made it look like the eagle was grinning. It was ridiculous. I sent it over to the manager and we had a couple of laughs. About a week later, I got the revised proof back from the customer. Somehow we sent them my joke, Happy Eagle. They love it, run with it, business cards for everyone in the company, envelopes, letterhead, invoice sheets, and vehicle wraps for the trucks. I saw the trucks all over town for months and laughed my bum off every time. Story 9. As a graphic designer, I have to deal with a lot of people who basically destroy all the hard work me and my coworkers put into a project. At first, I couldn't handle it. Now I just find it funny to see where a project goes. But today, I had a client yell at me for telling me that the images we used were too low resolution for their Word document. Me? Sorry, but we cannot boost the quality of the images we receive from you. If you have a higher res photo, we will have no problems placing it into the document for you. Client? But I gave you a vector photograph. Me? Photographs do not come in vector files. Client, but it was a screen grab. The resolution should be larger than the image. What if I scan my monitor? Would that produce a higher quality screen grab? Me, how did you send us the last screen grab? Client, I took a picture of my computer screen with my iPhone. Dang, some of these stories could pretty much fill a good chapter of a book or two. But hey, before you rethink your career, check out the next video. What's the dumbest customer complaint you've heard? It might make you feel a little more prepared for anything clients might throw your way. Plus, story 1 is guaranteed to entertain. It got me going pretty good. I'll see you there, and thank you for watching this one.